Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you today. This one's going to almost be like an art project. We have been working on this Freddy Krueger pinball machine. If you haven't seen our other videos where we've messed with it, go check those out. The links are below. We bought this thing. It's in really rough shape. We've been fixing it up. And we are down to just a few things left. So we need to fix his glove that goes over there. We need to install his head that goes up there, and we have that. And then we need to make a Nightmare on Elm Street house to go over here because it's missing off of this game. But today we're going to focus on fixing his glove. So one of the problems with this game is this was a toy that goes over here, and basically you can use it as a flipper to knock the ball off of this ramp. Well, the problem is they made the bottom blade on his glove out of metal, but they made the top three out of plastic, and they get broke immediately. So every one of these has the blades broken off of the glove. So people over the years have done various things to repair these. What we're going to attempt to do is replace them with metal blades, just like his real freaking glove. So we're going to try to make some metal blades to put in there. Can you believe that? So this game, we were talking before about how they supposedly, according to the operator we bought it from, someone stole his head, broke the glass, stole his head by ripping it off of the game. There was a little piece of his head left on the game. So this is a piece of Freddy's head that was still bolted onto the cabinet. So it does appear that somebody ripped his head off of the game. And then they ripped, supposedly, the Elm Street house off of the game. And once more, we have a small piece of it. This is a piece of the house that was still on the game. And then the glove was still mounted in the game, and if you look, the support piece was bent all to hell. Look how bent up that is. So we think what happened was the guy was like pulling on it, trying to rip it off of the game, and was unsuccessful. So it actually survived, even though the three plastic blades had probably been long broke. So the first part of it is this metal piece on the bottom is all screwed up. But Marco's Specialties actually remakes that piece. So we got one brand new. Look at that. This thing is expensive though. It's about 30 bucks, which is kind of expensive for just a little piece of metal. But I can see why it needs to be that way. So that's going to be the bottom, and then his glove is going to mount onto the top of it. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to leave this on for now just so we got a good way to hold it. What we're going to try to do is take a Dremel and cut the blades out. I don't know what this is, like resin or something, I don't know. Plastic, I don't know. We're going to try to cut slots in there, and then I'm going to try to remake some metal blades that are bigger than this. I want them to be thick like these. If you look real close though, when they come out of his hand, they kind of taper down a little bit. So we're going to make ours do that, and then we're going to match that curve that's on that bottom one, but they'll be a little thicker than that, but they'll have that same kind of curve to it. You can see on this, on the metal one, see how it kind of steps down as it comes out of his hand, and the other ones don't. They come out straight, and then the bottom kind of curves up like the bottom does on this one. So we're going to try to make something that kind of follows that pattern. And then I watched all the movies, and I was trying to figure out how it looked in the movies. I believe, I'm not an expert, but I believe they're all the same length, and so all of the blades are the same length, and he's just got 4 of them on his hands, and they at the end they come out in kind of a different fan because his fingers are different lengths. So I'm going to make 3 of them that are the same length as this one, and then they're going to be mounted slightly different. I guess I can't really make it the same length of this one because it doesn't have a clear place that it stops. So since his ring finger is just slightly longer than his pinky finger, I'm going to make this blade stick out just slightly longer than the metal flipper part. And then the same again on his middle finger, and then we're going to go back a little bit with his index finger. So we're going to attempt that. So I'm going to try to buy some kind of metal stock that I can cut with a Dremel or something, and then polish up or grind up, and then put in there. And we'll see how well it goes. And then we're going to try to glue the things in so that they never come out. And we're going to see if we can get that looking a little better. So I'll take it in the back room, and we'll see if we can grind those old blades out. So before we destroy the blades that are already in there, we're going to get some good measurements on it. And I guess you folks can use this if you're trying to do the same thing. So let's see how thick they are. They appear to be 3/32 of an inch. Am I doing that right? Yep, 3/32 of an inch thick. Let's make sure I'm right about that. Yeah, I'd go with 3/32 of an inch thick, people. 3/32. And it doesn't have to be perfect, you know. Let's see what the actual little metal part is. That's about what the metal is too. Maybe a little less. Okay. And then the actual blades start out. I'm trying not to use the end because it's, you know, it's always got a little wobble in it. Who knows if they've got that right. The actual blades start out about can't really get a great measurement of that. As they leave the finger, 11/16, something like that. That's crazy. I think we're going to have to freehand it, folks. It's kind of hard to tell how deep in the hand they are, but I guess pretty deep. You know, we're down to, I guess it's pretty much down on that metal piece there. Well, I have to be careful too. I want them to all be kind of straight. You know, you don't want one doing this and one doing that. Even though it looks like it probably was at one point. Like this one is angled up higher than this one, which is down a little lower. And this one's down a little lower. So, because his fingers aren't, you know, they're kind of, this one's higher than these ones. Well, on these, look, it runs almost down to this joint here. So we're starting just a little past the joint. So you would assume that this one would have too. So that bottom claw, I'll break my rule and just measure it from the tip there, is I'm going to call that 2 7/8. So I think our pieces need to be about 2 7/8. Let's remeasure to make sure I'm all right on that. So I'm saying that to almost that joint there is 2 7/8. Yeah, I think that's right. So you need them to be 2 7/8 long. You need them to be 3 32nds of an inch thick, and then of course they're really thin, so it's not that big of a deal on that part. As for the curve, I think what I'm going to do is just take this new one and kind of trace it. I wonder if these are identical or if they just kind of made it similar. Yeah, it's a little different. Well, no, it's just a mistake of the way I was holding it. Look, they're the same. They're the same size. We're going back to 2 7/8. You would expect them to make them the same size. So I guess they did. Mine's just bent all to hell, so it's hard to lay it up on it to where it's the same, but it actually is the same length. Pretty much. Close enough. So we're going to do 2 7/8 inch long. And I guess next what I need to do is go to the store and find some, well, I need to grind those out, but I need to go to the store and buy some kind of metal flat stock and see how much that costs. Okay, not sure how well this is going to work. We just got a Dremel with a cutting tool on it. I don't have any gloves on me right now, but if you're watching this, wear gloves. Let's see if what I can get done here. So the fun part is figuring out how to hold it so you don't kill yourself while I'm also videotaping it. So basically this is plastic, so I'm kind of melting it. Through a little bit, so watch that. Let's turn it down too. We're just trying to trim it up a little bit. What do you think? Pretty good, huh? If I can keep from cutting my hand off while I'm cutting Freddy's blades off. All right. Alright, so I'm probably going to have to trim it up a little bit so that I can get down in that crevice, because you know with the circular tool it's not all the way back, so we're going to have to use some kind of file or something to get down in there so it's nice and flat so his blade can fit all the way back in it. But basically I'm just going to do that same thing on the other two. So this is what we ended up with as a kind of a preliminary thing. We cut 3 channels into his fingers. where the old blades were, the plastic ones that were just molded in. Yeah, and just so you understand, this is just a mold, so there were like 3 plastic pieces on it, and they just break real easy. So I'm not, if we're putting metal ones on, it was never like that, but they'll be strong enough that they won't break off, hopefully. But we've got to get them deep enough down in the fingers that they'll hold there really good. So preliminary, we're just going to try it like this. So we're going to, next I'm going to get the metal and try to cut some finger blades, and then see what I can do about getting them to lay in there. So let's go get some flat stock to do this with. Alright, we're here at the store, and look, they've got aluminum flat stock. So I'm going to try some of this. Actually, check this out. They've got some that's only a 1/2 inch wide, which is perfect. So, and it's aluminum, so it's lightweight. So that'll be perfect. Okay, folks, I'm going to get that aluminum one, but it might be a little thick, so I'm also getting this just plated steel piece here. So we'll see what we got from that. And now I'm looking for glue. I think I'm going to get this epoxy because it'll fill in voids. You know, we don't have a perfectly flat surface. Basically, we're trying to make it fit in a hole. So I think I'm going to get that done. The only thing I'm worried about is it may not be paintable. So if it's not paintable, I'm going to have to go back and put something else over it or whatever, because we've got to paint, you know, the edge to make it look good where the blades stick out. So I think we're going with the Loctite epoxy. Alright, folks, so we have got back to the shop and we took the old blade off, and the new blade fits on about like this. So anyway, we were able to make some more measurements of it, and I was able to trace it. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the part where it jogs down as it comes out. So in this one, it gets thinner as it comes out. So this is the top of the finger. It goes down, so the blade's a little thinner. We're going to make it a little thicker in this area by just not cutting that out. And we'll have the same curve on the bottom area. But then when we get up to the finger, it kind of jogs out. So we're not going to do that either. We're just going to go straight so that it sits in the finger. And this is going to be the first one we do. If we get one that looks good, we can just trace it and make 2 more. But this will be our prototype one. I tried using the aluminum, but it was a little bit too thick. It was 1/8 of an inch. And as you saw, what we were looking for was 3/32. Well, this is 16 gauge. And it's the exact same size of this reproduction finger and the original one. So I don't know what size. I think that's the size the plastic ones were too. But .12 gauge, I'm sorry. Oh, if I can get that to focus. 12 gauge. So I think that's the perfect size. So I'm gonna cut that out with a Dremel and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so this is my rough piece. I clamped to the table and cut it off the end. And so basically, it's almost the exact same size, but it's thicker. And of course, I still got to trim it up and stuff. But if you look, that's what I tried to do. Was, well, I can't do it all with one hand. But basically, what I tried to do was get rid of this piece where it goes down. So I just left it flat, and then on this piece where it goes down, I just left it straight. So I'm gonna grind on it with a grinder a little bit, attachment on the Dremel, and I'm gonna get this curve just a little bit more pronounced like it is on that one, because it's a little bit flat because you can't cut it with a cutting wheel curved. So I'm gonna grind it a little bit just to give it a little bit more of an arch on the bottom. I'm gonna leave the top that way it is. All right, so I got it shaped a little bit better. And when you put it in, it's too tall. But the length is nice. But it sticks up out of the glove too far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little ledge in the blade. You could also cut more of this out, but you know, you've only got so much glove, so I don't want to go too deep in it. So I'm going to try cutting that out. and see what that does. Alright, so I got that part cut out, and it made it a little bit, it now fits in there pretty good, actually. As you can see, looks good on the length, looks good from the side, but the only problem is there's a little bit too much meat. It's like it's a little too thick. When it comes out of his hand, it shouldn't hang down that far. So what I need to do is get rid of some of this top edge, and hopefully once I get this one pretty nice, I can just make two more just like it. So this is kind of my jig that I'm making. So I'm just going to try to make it thinner on the bottom so it looks a little better coming out of his glove. Alright folks, so I'm just of course holding it in place. Look at that. I think it's looking great. Not bad. So I think we're on to something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make two more just like that, but I think I'm going to leave the hip on and then cut it specifically for each one, because I don't know, I might be deeper down in the glove in certain ones and stuff. So I'm going to leave that little hip off and then I'll cut it for each one, but I'm going to make two more like this, and I think we'll be able to ready to glue them in. Alright, so I've got two basically finished, and this one I just cut out the blank, so I need to shape it, and I'm going to test fit it and everything. These two I've test fitted in the bottom two fingers, and they're looking pretty good. So we're finishing up the third one. And keep in mind too, whenever you make this, that in the movies, Freddy's glove was handmade. He made it himself, so it wasn't perfect. It had blemishes and stuff all over it. And also they use different gloves in every movie, so it's all a little different and stuff. So if it's not perfect, it's fine. Whenever people look at it, they're going to see the glove, and their thought's not going to be, oh, that one blade looks a little bit longer than the other one or whatever. Their thought is, oh hell, it's Freddy's glove, look how cool. So I'll finish up this one, and then we'll be to the point where we can epoxy them in. Alright, so we have cut the three blades. That top one slipped a little bit, but we're good. We got three knives. I'm going to clean them up real good, and then we're going to glue them in. Okay, it is setting up. We poured the epoxy in and then fit the blade in, and it is drying. It's not all the way dry yet, but we're going to keep at it. We kind of have to baby it a little bit because it takes a long time for that stuff to set up whenever you're filling up a void like that. You know, if you were just gluing something flat to something, it's a lot easier, but we're basically making a big pool of epoxy and then sticking the thing down in it and then wanting it all to dry, so it takes a little longer, but it's getting there. And whenever we before we finished it up, we took some pliers and kind of just grabbed the blade a little bit, and it put some little scars on it and stuff to make it look a little more realistic. And then on the bottom one, we did the same thing with it. I took the grinding attachment on the Dremel, and I just grinded the bottom blade a little bit too, and so basically they look almost identical. They look like the only difference is that they were made by hand, and one of them was just made a little different, so they're shaped slightly different, but the actual look, I think they're the same 12 gauge metal, so it's getting there. So we're going to keep babying that one until we get it to dry, and then we'll glue in the next one. Alright, so we have all three of them glued in, and it looks pretty good, but they're pretty weak as far as strength. So what I'm going to do is, and I've only had this stuff on them for a little while, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it somewhere where it's well supported, and then I'm going to take some more of the stuff and go around and try to fill in the void all the way around all of the blades, and hopefully it'll sink down in there, and then we'll let it dry overnight. And once we get it nice and dry to where it seems like it's strong, we can paint the silver back in just around it. So all of that void around the blades, we're going to paint silver. If you look, that's how they had it originally. So we're going to paint that back in, and we're going to leave the blades the color they are, and that'll be that. But I'm really pleased with how the actual blades themselves look. I think that looks great, guys and girls. I think that looks great. It looks kind of homemade, which is kind of how his glove would look. And I'm really pleased that we got the bottom one to look more like the other three. If you look on the way it was done originally with the plastic ones, the bottom blade just looks, it doesn't look right because the other ones look different. But I think we got it all looking similar, so I'm happy about that. So yeah, I'm going to basically pour more of this epoxy all down, all around, all three blades in their little slot, so that they will have all kinds of glue on them. So we'll see how that goes. Alright, so the glue dried overnight and the thing is strong now, so I think we're good. So I'm going to try to paint it now. I've got some like kind of silver paint, and I'm just going to try to touch up those cracks around it to see if this epoxy will take paint, and then it'll be ready to put back on the machine. So the paint went right on. So the epoxy was completely paintable. I just used some little cheap metallic silver paint. We've got all kinds of paint here because we touch up stuff all the time. But this stuff is like $1 a bottle at Hobby Lobby or at Michael's. And I just painted around his fingers. I added a little bit on this bottom one too to just make it look like the other ones. If you watch in the movies, the way the blades are attached to these metal pieces on his fingers, or they're welded on. So there's like the way that looks on the side of it, that's exactly how it looks in the movies. They're welded onto the tips of the fingers. So I think it turned out pretty good. So there you go, and you can see how the blades all look similar because we distressed them a little bit with the with this grinding attachment on the Dremel, and then by just grabbing them with some pliers and twisting a little bit and leaving little marks and stuff on them. You could probably get as you could probably go crazy on that, making them look really good. You could even put little splatters of blood on it and stuff like that, but we think it looks good like this. So the next step is we're just going to bolt it back on the machine, and then we're going to test it out a little bit. Looks pretty good, and it works good, as you just saw. So whenever we bought the game, it was missing the house and it was missing Freddy's head. We found Freddy's head, so we've got that. We're going to put it back on later. But the house is missing, and it's just a piece of plastic, and we've looked and looked and looked, and nobody's got it. For years we've looked for it. We haven't been able to find it. We found every other thing that the machine needs except for that freaking house, so we're just going to make one. So we figured we would film a little video of us making the Nightmare on Elm Street house. So it goes right here. It mounts on this post and goes across here, and it can only be, you know, about as high as these because it needs to come out to about here, and if you go any higher than that, you're going to hit the glass. So either we need to make it jog down a little bit or something, but it's a kind of rectangular piece that goes here. I'll show you some pictures of the one that was actually on the original machine, and then we'll look at some pictures of the house from the movie, and then we'll decide how we're going to make it. So this is how the house looked in the movie. Now, in the first movie and the second movie, I believe. I think the door was blue originally, though. But in all the other movies it's been red, so we're going to make it red. But if you look, it's got a real distinctive, like there's an arch above the door, and then there's this second floor with windows on it. And if you remember the movies, this was the girl's bedroom, and the guy across the street was Johnny Depp, was her boyfriend. He used to climb up there was like a what do they call that, a lattice over here. He used to climb up it, and then there was a lattice up here, and he'd climb into her window and stuff. And then they all got murdered. Actually, the girl didn't get murdered, but he got murdered. But anyway, so we want something that kind of looks like this, but we don't want it to look like, the actual house. It doesn't have to be all that. It doesn't have to look exactly like the house in the movie, but this is how it looked originally. Now this is how it looked in the third movie. So here's the original house. That's an actual house in LA where they filmed it. And then in the third movie, if you look, this is not the same house. This is just a looks like they just built a set. It may just be a little model. But if I was going to guess, it's probably a complete facade. But you can see the lattice I was talking about hanging off. And so by this time, the house is all dilapidated, etc., etc., etc. But it's not the actual house. If you look, there's a little bit of differences. Like, see how this porch is real stately on the original one? It sticks out. It looks like maybe 6 feet from the house, 8 feet from the house. And on this one, you can see it's just a little smaller one because it's not the actual house. But it has this really cool grimy look to it with all these boards over the windows and everything looks dilapidated, right? Okay, so this is another version of the house that was in the third movie, and a girl was dreaming about the house, and so she was making a little model of the house. A lot of people, whenever they make if you look online, whenever a lot of people make a model of the house, they just make this model, which I think looks like crap. We're not going to do anything like that. And then finally, this is the house from the actual pinball machine. This is from the Internet Pinball Database. So this was over the part we were just showing. You can see that they took a lot of liberties with it. It's a kind of a cartoon version of the house. So it's longer, it's not as tall. So because of that, they didn't even do the upstairs windows in the house. And it's still got the arch over the door, and it's got kind of a semblance of the boards over the windows, but it's all just kind of quickly thrown together. It's not like it's not meant to look super realistic. So the other thing about this one is it's plastic. So there's a flasher underneath it, there are a couple of them, and it lights up the whole house. Let me get that phone. That was annoying. So it lights up the whole house. So if we're going to build one out of wood, which is how I kind of want to do it, we need to put windows in it so that there'll be some way for the light to come back out. So I think what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to try to make it look like this, because to me, if we're putting the wrong house on it, I need to make it look a little more like the one from the movie, so that it looks like an upgrade instead of just a cheap imitation of this thing. So instead of this one and the original one, I'm not going to do the original one because I think it would look out of place on the machine. Because if you look at all the artwork, it looks like you're in Freddy's kind of dream world, and everything's a little distorted and disheveled. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make kind of this version. I'm not going to make it all this complex with the moss hanging off of it and everything, and I'm going to make it more flat, because basically you've got to worry about the pinball hitting it, and you don't want to destroy the thing if the ball ends up in that direction. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the look of this house and combine it with the size of this house, and we'll come up with something. So the next thing we need to do is we need to go to Hobby Lobby and see what we can find to make this thing out of. So I am at Hobby Lobby, and they have this really good selection of wood that you can make things out of, little craft things. And so they have this section here of basswood, selection of basswood. And look, it's even got this kind of shingled look piece. It's just a whole bunch of pieces of basswood. Seems pretty sturdy. And it's like $10. And then they have all these little pieces like this. I'm gonna buy these two, I think, because I can use them for like the windows and things like that. So I'm just gonna grab some of that and see what we can do with it. So we made it back. Look at this sweet bag of basswood I bought. Or is it basswood? I'm gonna go with basswood. But what really caught my eye was this top piece here. Look at this. Look, it already has like a shingle look to it. Man, that's cool. Can't you just see it? Can't you just see what's going to happen here? So anyway, this bag has all of these little pieces. Look, some of them have siding. I don't know if we can use that or not. But some guy stepped on that one maybe. But you know, like you can, this is going to be the front of the house. We're going to cut windows in it, blah, blah, blah. We have to get all our measurements right. And then, you know, we're going to make a little small side piece of the house. And remember, the ball goes through this thing, so there's really, on the sides, there's really not much there. So it's got all these big pieces. And then it's got some stuff like this that you can make, I might make it like a post beside the door or something for that facade we were looking at. And then I bought a whole bunch of these as well. These are really little ones that I can make the maybe frame out the windows with. And then I'm going to take, maybe cut some little pieces of this off to make little boards that we can nail over the windows like it is in the thing. But like I said, we're not going to make it super, super complicated and super, super complex, because you don't want it looking way, way, way better than the rest of the machine. And I'm probably not capable of making it look way, way, way better than the rest of the machine. But I am going to make a little freaking house to fix my problem, get it over with. I also bought these little carving tools. So I can probably use those to cut holes in it and cut them to size. Whenever we get it done, the main thing is going to be get the shape of the house. We want it to look pretty good, and then I'm going to paint it. And so the painting is where it's going to make it look like the movie. So the first thing I guess we're going to do is we're going to go measure a bunch of stuff off of the machine, figure out what size we need everything to be, and then we'll cut out all of our main shapes so that we've got basically the bones of the house, and then we can start decorating each piece of it. So I am not an artist, but I made a quick little sketch. Basically, I want it to be 7.5 inches long, and I want the roof to overhang about 1/8 of an inch on each side. So I want the roof piece to be 7 3/4 inches long, so it overhangs a little bit. And then I want the whole thing, on the plastic one, it had some kind of thing where it jogs down a little bit to go to 3 1/4 on the far right side so that the glass doesn't hit it. I'm going to kind of shoot the duck a little bit and go in the middle. So I decided to make just the whole thing flat all the way across and go with 3 3/8. So it's kind of in the middle, right? And if it's where it's going to hit the glass, I can always slide it a little bit. So we'll see what we can do. Or worst case, I could just cut part of it off. we'll see how that goes. So the whole thing needs to be about 3 1/4 inches tall. So I decided that, you know, the front kind of needs to be fairly prominent. So I made it 2 of the 3 inches. So the front piece is 2 inches tall. So I can put my little porch thing, which is probably the most recognizable part of the house. And then I wanted to keep the top part. So even though the top part is only 1 3/8 inches tall, since the roof is slanted, now on the actual house, it's almost straight up and down. But you know, we're taking a liberty here. It's a pinball machine, people. So we're going to lay it back a little farther. And so it'll be something. This will be the side view, kind of. So the roof will lay back, actually even steeper than that, and then this little, what do they call those? Dormer. This little dormer will stick out on the front of the house. And after looking at the pictures of all the houses, it's actually pretty much flat with the front of the house. So it's, you know, whenever they build it, they just build a 2-story house and then they built the roof around it. So that will actually come out to the front. But that part will be, since we're 1 3/8 tall, I made it, I believe it's 1 1/4 inches, maybe just a little bit less than that. So basically you won't see much of the roof if you're looking straight on it, but since you're looking at the top of it, that part of the roof will be almost flat. So I sat here for about an hour and used my little carving tools and a tape measure and a pen and cut out all the little pieces of the house. So of course this is going to be the front. These are the 2 sides. This is the dormer. I mean, is that what they call it? I think that's what they call it. And these are the 2 angle pieces beside it. That's the roof for that part. And then that will be the roof for the whole house. As you can see, it's slightly bigger. It overhangs 1/8 of an inch on each side. So you kind of have to do a little bit of math and measure some angle. Well, you don't do math, but you need to measure some angles, because like this piece, for instance, That's the roof, and it's much, you know, the roof is only an inch and 3/8. That's much more than that because it's at an angle. So you have to figure out little stuff like that. And you could always put it together and then measure it. And I may be wrong on some of it, so I may have to recut some of it. So next up, we need to kind of start thinking about light. So I want it where light can shine out of the windows, even though they're going to be boarded up. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to make the frames, but maybe I'll make it where you can't see the actual windows, and because, you know, we're going to put boards over everything. So most of the window is covered by a board. So if the window is like this, you know, I don't really need to put the paint and to paint all that in there, because it's all going to be covered with boards. So maybe we'll have a piece of wood like that, or hell, maybe wider, maybe a big slat like it is in the movie, and then there's another one like this, and then there's another one right next to it kind of the same, and then maybe one like this or something, or whatever. We'll figure it all out. It'll cover most of the window, and so if you look close, some of it, you know, you'll be able to see. But whenever the flasher goes off inside, I want it to shoot light out, you know, through all of these cracks and stuff. So it'll just have this really cool, kind of hopefully scary looking look to it. And what I'll do is the hole in the back, instead of just leaving it open where you can see inside, I'll put like some kind of fish paper or cellophane or something on it so that it looks finished, but when it'll let light pass through it. And we're going to do that with all of the window sections. So I don't know how complex I'm going to make them. I'm going to have to think about that. You know, it's really small, so, you know, we're only talking about like that area. So I can't leave little pieces of this basswood because it'll just break off. So I'm thinking I'm just going to cut like a big hole, and then when I paint it, I might be able to paint it up a little bit. Or I guess I could use my sticks to like make a frame. Maybe maybe I'll do that. So I'll cut a hole where the 3 windows here go, and then I'll lay these sticks. I'll glue these sticks around it to make a frame so that it actually looks like a window, and I'll put a couple in the middle so that it looks like that there's 3 windows there or whatever. And then we'll put the slats on and put the fish paper behind it, and it'll look really cool. So I guess next up I need to draw out on the boards where my windows are going to go. This end piece here, by the way, is the part that's the farthest away that the ball comes out that side. I think almost all of this is gone. I think like the bottom that much is gone so that the ball can get out. So there may not even be room. There probably won't even be room to put a window or anything over there, and it's at the back of the machine, so you can't hardly see it. But this one, your ball shoots right under it, every ball. So I'm going to put a nice window on this one. So maybe I'll do this one first, and we'll see if we can get the window laid out right, and then I'll lay out the frame, how it's going to be, and then I'll make a couple of the slats, and we'll just kind of rough it up just to see how it's going to look. And I have to get the sizing right too. Like, I'm going to measure these ones on the side and figure out how big the front ones are going to be, and then I can make the side one the same size so that it all looks correct. The ones at the top weren't full-size windows even in the original house, I don't think. I think they were smaller. But I'll look all that up. But again, it doesn't have to be exactly like the movie. You're just kind of making a rough approximation. So I've just been drawing some stuff out. I measured it out a little bit, and this is kind of what we got. Of course, I'm going to paint it so it'll look all different than this, but this is just a rough idea. And the actual windows, like I was saying, don't need much detail because we're going to put frames around them and then slats all over it. The door will have a little bit more detail. That top part there will be a hole so that light can shine out that. And then I don't know if we might cut some holes in this part too so that light shines out around the door too. But so I think we can go ahead. I think I'll do this side one first just because it's the simplest. So I'll cut out the hole, and then we'll cut some frame, like a frame for just a simple frame for the window, and then we'll cut some little slats. So I made a little window frame, but the whole problem is, let me see if I can rig it back up where you can see the deal. The whole problem is, if you have a window frame and then you put the wood on it, it does look really cool, but it sticks out so far from the house that it just, you know, because you kind of got to do one sideways too. It just sticks out too far. Like, you know, you're starting to get a lot of, it doesn't look realistic anymore. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint a nice window frame on it, and then put the boards right on it. Because, you know, it doesn't have to be picture perfect. So I think I'm going to do more like this. Once we get a nice window frame painted on it, and then the boards on it, it'll look great. So I made a whole bunch of these little slats, and in the movie they're all different sizes and different lengths too, so I'll make some short ones that they nailed up over this little hole and stuff like that. But that's pretty much how we're going to do it. So it's a little kind of a proof of concept. So I'm going to cut out these 2 long holes where the 3 windows go, and then I'm going to cut out, and I might, the problem is you can't cut it out on this wood. You can't leave just a little thin strip in between the windows like would be there in reality. So I might glue like a little window piece back in or something, I don't know. But I'm going to cut out the whole thing, and then the 2 up here, the dormers, and then I'm going to go ahead, and I guess we're going to have to paint this first, because I've got to paint that windowsill on before I put the boards on, so that you'll see it behind every little nook and cranny that's sticking out. So next up, I'm cutting these out, and then I'm going to get out some paint, and I'm going to make these things start looking a little bit like a house. So keep your fingers crossed. So I'm doing some of the painting. One of the things that I'm doing is I'm just taking some white paint. At first I was just going to try to get like something more brown or something, but then I started thinking about it, and this is wood, you know. So I mean, if you just paint it on kind of thin, you get kind of a whitewash, and some of the wood from below it shows through. So what I'm doing is, I've already finished this one. I drew in lines for where all of the siding would be, and then I'm just going in and painting over it, real sloppy and messy, and it's diminishing those lines, because, you know, on a house you wouldn't really have black lines wherever all of the siding is. There's on a perfectly painted house there aren't any lines, but you kind of need some kind of lines on there to show the shadow. So you want it as light as possible, but you want it all kind of messy because the house is old and dirty and hasn't been painted in 30 years and all that. So I'm just kind of whitewashing it, and then I'm going to go back later and smudge it all up and make everything, you know, look dirty and dingy and all screwed up. So this is where we are. I cut out the holes like I was talking about, and like I was just showing you, I put in some stuff for siding. I'm going to kind of leave it like that, and then once it dries, I'm going to smudge it up and try to make it look dirty and filthy. And then I took those little sticks that I bought, and I super glued them into the windows kind of evenly, so that it looks like we have separate windows now. We're getting there, people. So guess what's next? It's time to put on the little slats and boards and stuff. I'm gonna glue them. I don't know if I might do like a few and then paint them one color. Maybe I should paint the slats first, because on the movie they were kind of gray and brown like old weathered wood, but then some of them were green where they were painted, so they've been ripped off the side of a shed or something and nailed on the thing. So I think maybe I'll paint a bunch of those first, and then I'll go ahead and glue them on there. I'm going to go ahead and put the house together pretty soon, because I have a little issue. I need to figure out how to do the roof. So the second story, the roof will come down and overhang, you know, like that. So it'll sit like maybe like that, right? so that's going to overhang. And my issue is I need to make this arch kind of prominent where you can see it. So I'm going to cut an arch out of some of this, I don't know if I can do it out of that, but out of something. I'm going to cut an arch that actually sticks out from the house a little bit, and then I'm going to maybe make two posts, one on each side of the thing, so that it kind of looks like there's a little porch. But I'm going to leave it real low profile because you don't want stuff sticking way out, because if a pinball hits this thing, it's going to screw it up. So I have to be real careful about how I design it so that if a pinball hits it, it's got a little bit of strength. So I'm gonna try to figure out ways I can double up the strength of it in case it takes an errant pinball. And then the other thing is, I don't know if you noticed in the picture, but on the original one that they made, there's a hole cut out of the end of the house, because the way the thing sits in the game, your ball goes under this part. So the ball goes under that and through the house, but then on the other side there's a ramp, so it's rising. So as it sits in a pinball like that, there's a scoop cut out here so that the ball can exit the house without hitting anything. So I kind of eyeballed it from the picture, and I made a little frame. Remember, all of this is going to be covered with boards and stuff. And then this is the top part that matches this. So this is the other side of the house. So the whole bottom of the house on that side is missing so that the ball can come out. But we're getting there. But pretty soon I'm going to glue it together so that I can figure out how to do the roof. The reason I haven't, I'm going to do the roof kind of double thick to help give everything a little bit of strength. So I'm going to do the roof out of this, and then of course all of this stuff will, stick out from it. And these, and then there is another roof that will go on top of the middle part, right? So it's going to end up something like that, whatever. After I do that, I'm going to try to use that cool piece I was looking at. I'm going to try to use that maybe. But I'm going to I'm just going to cut it out at the end and lay it over the top of it so that it's like double thick. So the roof will be twice as thick. Maybe it'll help protect it a little bit. So the next things I'm going to do, I'm going to paint a bunch of the little slats. So I've got a ton of them to nail over the windows, and then I'm going to start putting the bottom floor together. And the way I'm going to glue that is I'm going to use some of these posts in the corner inside to give it more strength. So that I'll have a good place to mate this to this. And then I'll probably put one on the back just to make that nice and strong, and I may put one on the bottom inside just to make that nice and strong, and I'll put one up here just to make that nice and strong. So every place that the things go together, I'll have a big post where I can glue to both sides of it and get it real strong. Okay, so I started putting it together, and we're coming along pretty well. I went ahead and put some stronger pieces to kind of give it strength, because remember, a pinball is probably going to hit this thing, especially Freddy's mouth's over here, and he spits the ball kind of in that direction, so it very well could hit it often. And then I put these two little columns here, and I cut this little arch that I'm going to put in the front to make just the hint of a porch and a little top piece. But I've got it all measured out and everything, and we're pretty much ready to put our roof on it. So the roof is going to go on it, and once I get that, then I can put the dormer in, and we're getting really close to having the house kind of all the way together. And then I'm going to have to paint, make it look better, and then we're going to have to figure out how to rig up something over the windows, and of course I still got to do the little boards. I was supposed to paint them already, but I got involved with putting the house together. So that's our progress. So took all day, but it has been built. Now still need all kinds of paint because I want to distress it. I want it to look like the old ugly version, not the nice clean version. And I put one board on just so you can kind of see how that's going to go. Most of the boards are going to be brown like they are in the movie. But I need to, I want to paint some dirt all over the house just to make it look all faded and old. And then also on the roof, the green, I want to paint like darker spots and stuff so that it looks like it's all done, you know, grimy. You know how old shingles get. This little porch thing, I'm really happy with that. That's exactly how I wanted it. I didn't want it to stick out too far because if the ball hits it, I don't want it to just smash things. And then on the inside, I put big supports everywhere I could. And here on the front, of course, the porch things are the big supports. So I'm going to, you know, everywhere something joins, it's got a big support. So I'm trying to make it as strong as possible to where it can take a good shot and not break. But basically we're down to, we need to paint. And then I need to put like another 50 of these boards on it, basically. Basically, I want to cover up almost everything, but where there'll be cracks and crevices. And so whenever the flasher goes off, it'll shine out. And I'm gonna see if it's possible to get like a red flasher, so it just does this crazy blood thing, you know, whenever it fires. So we're going to look into that. But I think it's coming along pretty nice. So what do you folks think? So we're getting down to the end here, and it's looking pretty decent in my opinion. So what I've been doing is, I painted the roof green, of course, and then I painted a few of these little slats green, right? And just left them laying around. And then I made a bunch more. I made a few more that were gray, and then whenever I had the gray out, I painted some little windows around the door like it's supposed to have. And then I painted just a couple slats gray. If you look at the picture from the movie, there were a few green and gray boards, and then the rest of them are just this old weathered brown look. So I did the same thing. I just made a couple green ones and a couple gray ones, and then I made a whole bunch of the brown ones. And so whenever I was painting the brown ones, when my brush would get low on paint, I would just wipe it off to where there's no paint really left on the brush, and then I just brush on the shingles a little bit, so it just adds a little bit of brown here and there. And I made a little line right here where maybe it would look like water's been dripping off the top and staining the shingles, and the same thing over here, and just kind of blah blah blah. And then whenever I really didn't have hardly any paint on the brush, I would just brush the white a little bit so it gets like dirt all over the house and makes it all look kind of dingy and dirty. And then I did the same thing with the gray ones. And then whenever I got all the brown ones done and the green ones done, I would take a little bit of the brown paint and just roughly brush it on the green ones so that there's a little bit of graining and stuff on the boards. And then I would take the white paint, that's this, and it's the same thing. Whenever the paint's almost all the way off the brush, just lightly brush it on the shingles, and it makes it all look weathered and old. And if you do it on the board, it makes the board look kind of weathered and old. And it's not perfect, but I think it's starting to look pretty decent. This is about exactly what I wanted it to look like, so I'm really happy and pleased with the results. So I'm almost done. I'm not going to do really hardly anything else. I have to put a little notch here because the place on the pinball where it sits, there's something in the way right here, so I have to get rid of the bottom of this pole, which is no big deal. And I have a few more boards to put on, but we want it to have cracks all over the place so that whenever the light shines, it'll bleed through there. I was going to put paper behind the windows, but I don't think I'm going to, because they're almost completely covered. You can't really see in, so I don't think it's necessary. So I'm just going to leave it with the cracks, and we'll mount it on there, and we'll see how that flasher looks shining through it. And I'm going to see if there's any way to do like a red flasher, or if I need to move the flasher. I'm hoping that I can just leave it where it is to make it as easy to. I don't want a bunch of wires that you have to attach and everything. I'd rather it just be something that I can just bolt on and we're done. So this is what the original one in the game looked like, and this is what my replacement looks like. You can see that the sizing is about the same, and you can see that I cut this hole out over here, as you can see was on that side. So this is what we're replacing it with, and you can see how the cracks are all in the wood, just what I was looking for. And on the way they mounted it was there was a little metal foot right here and a little metal foot right here. So I'm going to go find something at the store that I can just put a little metal piece on the bottom that sticks out that can screw in those two places. And then on the side, this is what the side looked like. You know, the ball goes right under it. And so ours is like this. Very cool. And then here's the one in the movie. You can see what I was talking about. See how some of the boards are green? A lot of them are brown. Since it was the full-size set, you know, they could use more boards, so I could have, I guess, cut more boards, but ours ended up being a little bigger. But, and you know, we couldn't make it tall like that because we had to make the house a certain size. But I'm happy with it. I think it did pretty good. Maybe the windows around the front door are a little bit too nice. They're not dilapidated enough. And I didn't put the lattice on it. And of course the porch has no depth to it. But for a pinball machine, I think that's pretty cool. And then finally, this was like a movie poster. Whenever the movie came out, you can see that they were kind of playing that up. That's a pretty good drawing of the set that they had built. And that's the look we were going for. So I'm happy with it. It looks good. And it's solid. So I've got it I've test fitted it where it'll mount pretty good. I need to get a couple little pieces of metal to glue on the bottom so that it's got a couple feet where it needs to have them, and then we'll mount it on the playfield. I also ordered those red LED flashers that I was talking about to see if we can make it super bright, blinding bright. So we'll put all that in the machine and then we'll see what it looks like.
Freddy home.
Alright, so there you go, folks. I think it turned out pretty good. It mounted, everything works, nothing seems to get hit by the pinball, and we do have the red flashers in there kind of illuminating it through all the little cracks and the hole in the door and all of that stuff. So I think it looks great on the machine, and especially since we were missing the part. So leave your comments below, tell us what you think about it. Give us a thumbs up for taking the trouble to film all this for you. And if you haven't seen all of our other Freddy videos when we were working on this pinball machine, make sure to check them out too. We did a whole bunch of work on it and filmed all of it. So we will see you on the next video.